Ya sabéis lo que estoy dispuesto a hacer por mi familia. ¿Qué haréis vosotros por la vuestra?
The main inspiration for Mafia 3? We have a whole lot of inspirations. We did a lot of research on New Orleans, on the period 1968, on Mafia. I think we're very inspired by the previous games in the series as well. And as well as mid-century action movies like Bullet, or in the later half of Goodfellas. It's a whole melange of things that have gone into this game. So we wanted to have a new kind of protagonist with Mafia 3 and engage in a new kind of Mafia story as opposed to the kind of tried and true Italian-American who rises through the ranks of the mob and then has a fall from grace at the end. We really wanted to invert that, and our fictional version of New Orleans in 1968 presents a really good opportunity to have a minority hero who's a Vietnam veteran and an orphan, and existing in a very segregated part of the country at that time that was going through a lot of political change and progress. And at the same time, historically, you had the Italian mafia and the criminal structure in America of the mob go through a lot of change as these new groups formed, which didn't adhere to the same old rules, of the Cosa Nostra and sort of like the Sicilian gangsters. So it's sort of a way to sort of like just weave through that, and it's a mafia story, but it's a new kind of mafia story. I'd say Lincoln is a Vietnam veteran, and being a soldier has really informed his experiences and his capabilities in the world. So, while this is not a Vietnam story, it's very much a mafia story. You hit the streets as a guy with a lot more training and experience in combat than the people you're going up against. And that really allows Lincoln to sort of own the battlefield and allows the player to feel a whole lot of agency in the game world. We've got our own engine, our own proprietary tech, which is it's pretty impressive, and we're pretty glad to share it with you. I'm a narrative content guy, so I can't speak too much to actual engine details, and I think there's more to come later on about our engine, like the name, for example. But it's built from the ground up to convey open world experiences in next gen. So it's an open world game and true open world, and the engine's capable of doing that. We're very focused on Lincoln, and he's our hero, and he's the playable protagonist. But those lieutenants, Cassandra, Burke, and Vito, they're very, very important characters, both for Lincoln and for the player to experience. So you spend a lot of time with them. You just not you don't play as them. Very, very early on, since before I became part of the project, and I've been there for over a year. I think we really wanted to sort of show, again, upheaval in gender roles as well, which is going on, and Cassandra's just a really, really interesting character, and kind of, we're not going to talk about her too much tonight, but she's got a really cool backstory for players to engage with. Yeah, so after Lincoln takes over each hideout and district, he has the opportunity to assign it to one of his lieutenants, Cassandra, Burke, or Vito. So he's out in the street, really taking it to the enemy, kind of single, like he's the point man in his whole operation. But he also has these 3 lieutenants who sort of manage what he takes over, and then depending upon who he assigns the hideouts or the districts that he takes, he gets a unique reward for each one. So you saw he assigned the cistern to Vito Scaletta, who's the hero of Mafia 2, and he got an upgraded sniper service for that. And each milestone, each thing that you conquer and take over has a unique reward associated with it for each of your spokes. So there's a lot of choice there involved in kind of like who you distribute kind of the things that you've taken from the Italian Mafia, who you dole that out to. I can't get too in depth into it, but there's opportunities for the player to engage in some very interesting choices with how they dole out things. We're consciously trying to make that a very difficult choice, both because your lieutenant characters want everything, and they have opinions about it if you don't give them much, or if you go back on your word, for example. Absolutely. Just as you had a choice to kill or spare the informant, or you had we had a very specific choice that we made to engage with the cistern in a particular way. One of our pillars for this game is that every player's story is unique. So as much as possible, we try and present players with a goal or an objective, and then give them multiple avenues to decide how they want to do that. And each of those choices that they make will have an impact over the course of the game. Yes, we have our bespoke key story missions in the game, which are really kind of very impressive set pieces where we've arted everything up for the player to experience in a very story-intensive way. We also have all these open world objectives like the Cistern or as you conquer districts, and there's a whole wide range of secondary content as well. But generally speaking, kind of the primary player-facing representation of our systemic open world would be just the criminal ecosystem. So you're engaging with a mob structure and dismantling it piece by piece, and sort of where you poke matters, and it's kind of determines the reaction and also the rewards you get from it. No, we're really focused on this Lincoln story and doing a really strong single-player experience. Future projects, definitely, that's one of the things that always comes up, and we're probably very excited about it, but we're really focusing on single-player for this one. For the junkies and the hippies, did a lot of drugs. No, I mean, it's 1968 in New Orleans, right? So you have films like Easy Rider, you know, which are really iconic stories of, like, you know, the hippie culture going on and counterculture in New Orleans. And there's a scene in Easy Rider in a cemetery very similar to that one. So we've kind of immersed ourselves in, it's such a rich period for art and music and pop culture and fashion and everything else that it's hard not to, you know, kind of be aware of it. So it's just been a lot of fun to go through and kind of go through all that media and sort of put ourselves in that time and place and try and recreate it for people to experience. Honestly, I don't know. I'd say Hayden, potentially. I can tell you, I honestly don't know, but I can tell you, I think it's a bit of a group effort because there's so much great music in 1968 to choose from. Like, I'm a music fan, and we're drowning in awesome tunes that we want to put in the game. And everything that you heard tonight should be in the game as well. We got some more stuff, and then we have a full orchestral score as well, like the combat music and you know, story music moments, which are being created as well for us.
So what, the movies from different radio stations, or?
Yes, we're going to have multiple radio stations for players to listen to as they drive around, each with their own sort of style and theme. I don't really want to make comparisons to other titles, and I'm a narrative designer, so I couldn't speak to the inspirations there, but I can say that, you know, it's a cover shooter, and we pay a lot of attention to other cover shooters as well as other open world combat. So we're just trying to really create a best-in-class cover shooter experience inside a true open world game. So as you see, Lincoln's really able to move around the battlefield, call in services, you know, use cover. He's a very powerful figure, so he can rush people and you know, engage in melee combat. We have a whole lot of really dynamic, you know, ways you can take down enemies through stealth or right up in their face. So kind of very excited about it. Yeah. Well, we're really trying to live up to the really strong tradition of the Mafia franchise in terms of a strong character and a really satisfying, engaging Mafia-based story. You know, Mafia 2 had a great story. In addition to that, we're plugging in a true open-world experience and trying to kind of flip things on its head and freshen it up with a really unique hero. He's an orphan, he's a war veteran, he's a black man in the South in 1968. So it's a really different, unique lens to look at the world of the criminal underworld and the Mafia than you've experienced before. Also, you know, we have returning characters from the Mafia franchise, so it's kind of a continuation of their story as well.